Business Value podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners to maximize business value so they can transition their business on their terms. Our mission was born from the lessons we've learned from over 100 business transactions, which fuels our desire to share our experiences and wisdom so you can succeed. Now here's your host, CEO of Mastery Partners, Tom Bronson.
Hi, this is Tom Bronson, and welcome to Maximize Business Value, a podcast for business owners who are passionate about building long-term sustainable value in your business. This podcast is part of our series with speakers from the upcoming Business Transitions Summit. The BTS is our event on May 2nd for business owners to be able to come and learn how to maximize the value of your business and begin the process of preparing for your ideal transition. Registration is open now at businesstransitionssummit.com. That's transitions with an S, businesstransitionssummit.com. Now, in this episode, I'd like to welcome our guest, Dave Casey. Now, he's a partner with us here at Mastery Partners, so he does what I do. And Dave will be one of our featured speakers at the Business Transition Summit. He's actually going to be leading a panel discussion on the topic of key performance indicators, and I know that is a passion of his. So welcome to Maximize Business Value, Dave.
Well, thanks, Tom. I appreciate it much. Glad to be here. And I just have to correct you. Nobody does what you do. So luckily,
not true. Yeah. Nobody does it as poorly as I do it.
No, okay. Maybe that's it.
Well, thank you for that. So, we're in the business together. So tell us a little about your business.
Well, it's interesting. I was going to talk about three businesses, actually. So I had an IT services business for many years. I sold that it's been a dozen years ago now. It seems like yesterday, but
has it really been a dozen years?
Yeah. Well, I guess 11 years. So it's coming up on a dozen. So So I exited that business and then went into consulting around cybersecurity and been doing that, still do that a little bit. And then just recently we've joined up, with Mastery Partners, and I've been working with business owners and helping them prepare their business for transition, but moreover, maximizing the value of their business, whether they execute an exit or not.
And that is super important, isn't it?
It sure is, In retrospect, as you know, I'd love to have gone through that process before I exited my business. It would have had a different result.
Well, and as you know, it's one of these things that, we developed this process because after I've bought and sold 100 businesses in my career, I was really frustrated that there was nobody in that space to help prepare a business for transition. So we had to make it up as we went along, right? And
there's plenty of folks that want to help you sell your business, but they're not there to help you do the work before the sale. And that's so important.
Well, and there's so many different types of transitions too. You might have an internal transition to an ESOP or to sell to management or your children. You could have an external transition, and all of those preparations are different, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to prepare to do an ESOP, your preparation is different than a preparation to sell to a private equity or take the company public.
Sure.
And so the beauty of what we do is we're totally agnostic to what the outcome is. All we are passionate about is helping the business owners really define that ideal exit and then execute it on their terms. And so you've been a great partner to have here at Mastery, and it's been a lot of fun working with you. So you're speaking and you're leading a panel discussion on the topic of developing and using KPIs to maximize business value at the Business Transition Summit. So tell us a little bit about your session.
Well, it's interesting. I think either on purpose or by accident, we all use key performance indicators to kind of find out how our business is running and where the problems might lie. And they're going to vary by business. But these are metrics that you gather to track either the success or maybe even the failure of certain areas within your business. formalizing that and putting that into a structure that others can understand as well, I think is incredibly important. I think it's important just to run your business, but it's also important if you do have an eye in the future to make a transition. So really what I think is I had a misunderstanding about what KPIs were when I had my business. So hopefully we can overcome some of those things with this session.
Really? So, I'm with you. I think that KPIs are really important, but I hadn't really thought about it. Every business owner has KPIs. Some of them are intentional and some of them are not.
Yeah.
And so,
like when you run out of cash and then you go, wow, I should have been tracking cash, so that happens.
The long running joke in our business was, we had KPIs that we were using at the last sizable company that I sold. And the long running joke was that before I put my key in the door to unlock it in the morning, the CFO had to hand me a slip of paper with cash, AR, and AP. Because that was an indicator I wanted to track every single day. And of course, long running joke because I didn't have a key. I didn't ever lock my door, but that was the first thing. She walked into my office every morning right after she arrived and said, okay, here's our cash. Here's the KPI on our cash today. So, because cash is one of the most important things that business owners should be tracked. So
that's a big one.
So if you, our listeners, if they come to this particular session at the BTS, then what should they expect to learn?
Well, I've narrowed it down to 6 or 7 different things. So, but first is, what is a KPI? What is a key performance indicator? And that's going to be in every aspect of the business. I came up through the sales side of the world. So I always thought of KPI as, where am I against my quota, maybe my profit percentage if I'm paid on profit, and that's about all I cared about. So there are KPIs in every aspect of the business, whether it's finance, engineering, operations, sales, marketing, you name it. Every part of the business has a set of key performance indicators to let you know what's going on in that area of the business. The other thing that the business owner, I think we have the opposite of the problem we had in the old days. We have a problem of too much information right now. We're gathering so much information, is sorting and categorizing that is hard. So what's important to the business owner? I think that's another thing we're going to do that. How do we gather that information? How do we gather the KPIs? What are the mechanisms to do that? And then what tools do you need to analyze that data? Certainly an Excel spreadsheet's a start, but there are many tools available to business owners to crunch that data and find out which KPIs, what are they really telling me? Then how do you do it on an ongoing basis? And I learned this kind of the hard way, and I mentioned cash. From a cash perspective, you have to not only gather this data and look at these points in time that the KPIs give you, but then you have to chart that, and you have to put that over a period of time and do analysis, doing a trailing 3 months, a trailing 12 months analysis, and try to build a roadmap. And then you look at the rate of change of those data points that will tell you where your business is going and give you a really clear, concise idea what's next. So typically, as a part of this, a lot of questions arise about that. We'll address those questions. And then the real big thing is, how does this affect my bottom line? How does this really affect the bottom line of the business? So we're going to cram a lot into this one session.
Wow, that is a lot of stuff to cover in like a 45-minute session. So aggressive.
We want to look attractive so that, of the 16 sessions, we want the line to be long to get into ours.
Yes, they're going to learn the most if they come to you, right?
Exactly right.
I can tell your passion on this topic comes through. Why are you so passionate about this?
I learned about KPIs a long time ago, actually in 1998. So that's quite a long time ago. And again, as I mentioned, I just thought about it as, sales and in that format. I learned as I prepared my business for sale, there were several items that I was not capturing. And I actually had to go back and kind of relive history, dig into the books, and recreate some of these data points that were important for the buyer to looking at my business. They wanted to know those things, and I hadn't been keeping track of along the way. I had all the data; it was there, but it was a long process to dig through and do that. So I was really kind of a seat of the pants guy for most of the time running the business. And then I realized I could have been running the business. It would have been easier to run the business, first of all, and it would have been more valuable when I sold it had I been doing this all along. So I really think this is a secret that business owners really need to take advantage of.
I totally agree with you. So I know you've been a business owner. What really qualifies you to be a speaker on this? I mean, this is a highly specialized topic, and it's different for every business, right? I mean, there are certain things that everybody should be tracking. What qualifies you as a speaker on this topic?
Well, there's two things. One, I've lived it. I've gone through the process myself, but that's just one kind of one evidence, I guess. The other thing is, for the last 10 years, I've been a mentor with a group called Biz Owners Ed. And that's an organization, it's a nonprofit that we help business owners kind of improve their business and get past the inevitable plateau that entrepreneurs have. So an entrepreneur starts a business, it ramps up quickly, and then inevitably it plateaus. And that plateau is usually because the business owners kind of run out of what they know how to do. They're a great salesperson. They've done all the sales they can do, but now finance is starting to catch up with them. HR, operations, areas where they're not great, are the reasons their business has plateaued a bit. So through that process, I've learned a tremendous amount about KPIs and really kind of learned maybe the traps of collecting too much information, the traps of collecting the wrong information. Or collecting the information and then kind of ignoring it and not taking action on it. So I think I've got a good perspective on it, and hopefully we can communicate that to the attendees.
Awesome. Yeah. For any business owner that doesn't really have kind of formalized KPIs, this is going to be just a spectacular session. Just a side story, in my last business, we had 3 different operating units, operating in 38 different countries. We literally had hundreds of KPIs that we were tracking.
Sure.
I only had 12, right? I'm as the business owner, I'm looking at 12 things that when we got together for our weekly meetings, my leadership team would report on their 2 or 3 things that were part of that 12. And if there was anything that was wonky, they might have hundreds of other KPIs underneath it, and they can pull into that data. I didn't want to. You can really get information overload when it comes to KPIs, and I didn't want all that detail. I knew that if something was wrong down that line, it was going to be reflected in this one number. So let me see that one number, right?
Yeah, getting to that point is not easy, as you know. I mean, it's and actually establishing these KPIs for each functional group and each management team, and then adjusting that over time. As things change, either your business changes, the market changes, whatever, the KPIs may change a bit too. Or you may find that the one you've been collecting and depending on just is not a good predictor of the future. So you've got to make some mid-course corrections. But yeah, you've got to kind of boil it down. I tried to get it down to 7. For me, I never got there. I was probably at a dozen or more, as you indicated. So
yeah, and it really, it depends on the business, and of course, having a very complicated business like we were in 3 different units and all these different countries, boiling it down to 12 was a real challenge. But ultimately, those are the ones. And occasionally, I would ask for detail, below that if it felt like something was going on. But those things, then I knew that every person in our organization had some KPI that they were tracking, right?
Yep.
So if I needed to drill in, I knew that I could get there, but I also didn't need to spend hours and hours poring over data that is not going to be helpful to me in making decisions in the business. Now, I know you mentioned this already, but there are 16 different concurrent sessions. And of course, you're going up against three other sessions at the same time. So, why should business owners plan to attend your session over anything else?
Well, this is it's kind of a trite response, but you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's where I think a lot of business owners, and I was in this group, I mean, they understood what KPIs were. They knew they should be using them. They may even be tracking a few, but they did not know, or they don't know in many cases, all of this and kind of building this, I call it a wedding cake. You've got all these stuff happening at lower levels that boil up to you, and how to effectively put all that together. And the biggest thing too is the analysis part. I mean, it's great to gather all the information, but learning how to analyze it, and maybe learning how to use external parties. You may have your CPA analyze some of your financial KPIs and come back to you. Maybe have your outside marketing firm really crunch the numbers on marketing and come back to you. So just learning how to do that, I think, is going to be the key part, one of the key parts of this session.
I really think business owners that come to your session are going to be able to walk away with actionable things that they can do that can have a significant impact on their business, short and long term. So I agree. I don't even know which ones you're going up against. Perhaps you'll be competing against me for audience. So I've asked you this question before because you've been on my podcast before, but I'd be interested to see how you answer it today. This podcast is all about maximizing business value. What is the one most important thing you recommend business owners do to build long-term value in their business?
I think that it's like going to the doctor. I think you have to do a head-to-toe assessment of your business, top to bottom, and really identify what's real, where your strengths really are, where your weaknesses are, and do that on a regular basis. It's something we don't want to do. I think as a business owner, I know that I had issues with certain areas of my business that they weren't causing me a problem, but they weren't really contributing to the overall effectiveness or profitability of the business either. And I left them alone. I just kind of ignored those things. I said, I'm going to focus on the things that I know I can change and or the things that seem more important at the time. Our business, for example, we had a big cycle. We had we're in marketing mode, we're in sales mode. We close a bunch of big deals. Now we got to fulfill that. So we kind of shift people that were doing business development over to delivery as we went through that cycle, and we kind of swung back and forth like this. And some of it was dictated by the client base. So if we're dealing with public entities, state and local government, that sort of thing, they have a budget cycle. So you're going through all this stuff, you win the contract, and you have to fulfill the contract. And we let ourselves kind of get whipsawed with that. And so I was focused on that. But underneath the surface, I had some HR issues. I had some financial reporting issues and other things that I kind of pushed to the side because they weren't as important as some of the other things in my eyes. And I think that head-to-toe assessment really brings those things out. So that's, to me, the number one thing for a business owner. I think you've got to take a look at the whole patient at least once a year.
And the good news is that's the first step in our process at Mastery.
Yeah, it's amazing, and we do that. I think we do that well in that we uncover things for people that they kind of know are there, but they haven't faced it. They're there.
Yeah, when we do our assessment, I always tell them we're probably not going to surface anything that you haven't at least thought about somewhere in the past. But you're going to have a lot of those, what I call V8 moments. I should have had V8, right?
Yeah.
For those of us old enough to remember those V8 commercials.
So, I think that stuff's full of sodium or something. You're not supposed to drink it now. So.
I know, yeah. It goes great with vodka. So,
Exactly.
So one bonus question for you, because in this series, we're doing a different bonus question. If you had the opportunity to go back to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give that person?
I've kind of thought that through a bit. And I'm sure I gave you a different answer if you've asked me this before.
I haven't asked this before. I ask you something totally different, but
all right.
Yeah, this is a new question.
Well, this one I think it's a two-part deal for me. One is how hard you work, and I've always thought that I was a hardworking guy. In retrospect, and I look back, I was hardworking in small bursts. When I started the company, I worked my tail off to get it to it was a viable company. And then I've got to admit, it's not that I took my eye off the ball. It's just I said, hey, I deserve some me time, or I deserve family time, and I need to do this, I need to do that. And so I took my foot off the pedal a few times along the way. And I think in really listening and being around people that have built incredible businesses, it's amazing that the people that have the most successful businesses, they never stop pressing, but they make sure that they've worked hard, but they also make time for their family. They don't make their family pay twice, and just never leave the business. But it's one of those things that there's times where I could have worked harder. So I think when I was 18, I just kind of thought, I was rolling along. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a job. Everything will be great. I'll have enough money to do whatever I want to do. And I really didn't, look at my work ethic as hard as I should have. And so it's been interesting. I think something worth doing is worth doing well, and doing, really working your hardest at it. So I think that's probably if there's one sentence, that might be the one.
That is some great advice to the 18-year-old self. I was fortunate enough to have been raised by a father who always said to us growing up, and my siblings and I talk about this often. We lost our dad about 24 years ago, but we often talk about this. He never cared what we would do for a living.
Right.
He said, go do whatever you're passionate about, be happy, find something that brings you joy and do that. But if you decide that you need to be the best in your field, you need to be the best at what you do. If you decide you want to be a ditch digger, then you just better be digging the biggest and baddest ditches on the planet.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I've tried to live by that, but I bet my 18-year-old self kind of let it slide out.
Well, there's a lot of distractions in those, I'd say late teens to 30 at least.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And particularly, I moved from a very small town to Dallas, and there were a lot of distractions in Dallas. So,
oh yeah.
It was, and anyway, I got a great career, and formed a company and did my dream, which was own my own company and do it, and kind of the American dream kind of thing. But several things I could have done better along the way, for sure. Yeah.
We all look back, and there are always ways to improve. My wife said to me recently, she goes, I just don't have any regrets. And I'm like, what are you talking about? All kinds of things I wish I could have done differently. So anyway, hey, how can our viewers and listeners get in touch with you?
Well, certainly through Mastery Partners. I'm on the Mastery Partners website and everything. So, but Dave@masterypartners.com. And I also still have a consulting firm around cybersecurity on Calvis Cloud. So Dave.Casey@calviscloud.com. Probably the two best ways to reach me. I'm also on LinkedIn and all the other platforms, but it's easy to get a hold of me.
And a quick plug too for Biz Owners Ed. You mentioned that earlier in the podcast, and it is a great program. Unfortunately, we're kind of winding down this season. It happens once a year for 10 weeks. We're at least beyond the halfway point of this particular season. But go to that website. What's the website for Biz Owners Ed?
Biz Owners, BIZ, bizownersed.org. And Yeah, and actually, we're going to take some steps this year to. We've taken over 100 companies through Biz Owners Ed, and just help them kind of improve their company and get past that plateau we talked about. But this year, we're actually going to try to schedule events throughout the year, not the full 10-week, 4 hours a week session, but we'll have other events each quarter. We'll get together prospective members for Biz Owners Ed, so business owners that haven't been through the program, and kind of match them up with alums from the program that have gone through that. We find that our alums are very passionate about Biz Owners Ed, and they're the ones that are primary source for referring new companies to go through the program. And they've formed several subgroups, and sometimes by class, sometimes by interest area. And they get together on a regular basis as well. So it's kind of turned into an ecosystem, which we're real proud of.
It's an amazing program, and love the speakers, and a lot of fun. Yeah, you guys do get great referrals there. But hey, 25% of your current class are our clients. So we
it's funny how that works out.
And it's so funny, other folks might say, well, why are you sending them to that? Because, they're learning this stuff from you. No, I'm passionate about education. And the more different inputs that a business owner can get about really improving their business long-term. I love the program. I've seen those speakers for many years and still take pages full of notes when I come to that. So I didn't want to get away without giving a nice plug.
I appreciate that.
So Dave, thank you for being our guest today.
Tom, thank you. We look forward to the Business Transition Summit in May.
I can't wait. We're going to fill your room. You can find Dave Casey at masterypartners.com or at Calvis Cloud. Is it calviscloud.com?
calviscloud.com or Calvis Consulting, either one.
Got it. So, of course, you can find him on LinkedIn. And, of course, you can always reach out to me, and I will be happy to make a warm introduction to my good friend and business partner, Dave Casey. This is the Maximize Business Value podcast, where we give practical advice to business owners on how to build long-term sustainable value in your business. Be sure to tune in each week and subscribe on our channel so that you'll never miss another episode. Until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to register today for the Business Transition Summit at businesstransitionssummit.com so you can maximize business value.
Thank you for tuning into the Maximize Business Value podcast with Tom Bronson. This podcast is brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners to maximize business value so they can transition on their terms. Learn more on how to build long-term sustainable business value and get free value-building tools by visiting our website, www.masterypartners.com. That's master with a Y, masterypartners.com. Check it out.
That was perfect. I wouldn't make any changes on that.